Hello, my fellow Embird friends. This is WeQuilt Studio coming to you with another Embird video. And this one today was inspired by a question on Facebook. It was about making a snake and using columns and whatnot. So I decided to make a little video about it. And using the column tool over here, either the regular column or the column with pattern, can sometimes be challenging, but there are a few little tricks to use. Now, yes, you can make a snake by just using the fill tool, and that's what I did. Let me hide the green, and I'll bring back the orange. So with this fill tool, you'll see that this, if I clicked on parameters, this is a fill. It's an auto column fill, so, and I checked use pattern, so I was able to pick out a pattern. If I didn't check use pattern and then hit apply, it would just be a regular auto column. But since I said use pattern, now I can choose a fill, and I always like cusp lines too. It's kind of a little more than halfway down, and hit apply, and it looks pretty nice with a snake. I increased my pull comp to 0.2 instead of 0.1, and just left this as auto as far as the underlay. So that's fine. You can create it that way, and you actually do get somewhat more control when it's a column. However, I could say the same thing for it being a fill. So if, say, I wanted to widen certain parts of this snake, just like I did on the green one, sometimes having it as a regular fill and then converting it to a column, or just leaving it as a fill and trying to edit it and making it wider, sometimes that can be difficult. And like I said, sometimes if you convert this fill to a column, okay, let me hide this one. I'll just make it yellow. And here I converted it to a column. Since it was originally, let me bring it back here. Since originally it was a column with pattern, when I converted it to a column, it converted to a column with a pattern. So that's kind of neat. It saved me a step. So, but here's what happens when you convert it to a column with pattern, or any sort of column from a fill. You go to edit it, you have a lot of nodes, and you think to yourself, well, that's going to be hard to edit and make parts wider. So then you think, okay, well, I'll just do transform, reduce nodes number, and sometimes 7 is a good place to start, and you click check, and you're like, okay, it still looks kind of smooth. You go into edit, you still do have quite a bit of nodes. And if you try to reduce your nodes even more to say 10, okay, you start to get sharp edges, and still there's a lot of nodes. And you could keep going to say 12, and then you just really are distorting it. So a lot of times it's easiest to just start out with a column. So I'll just delete this, and this is kind of the one I want to end up with, so I'll just keep that in mind. So, but without it even there, well, sometimes you do have an image that you go off of, so I will leave it there. But at any rate, the other thing you could do is, if you don't have something to go off of and you just want to follow some sort of a a pattern, you know, some sort of a shape, you could just create a line and, you know, the outline tool and just kind of make something that you want to mimic. You know, there's so many ways to go about it, and you could say, okay, I want to kind of mimic that shape. So let me hide the green one. So if I were to just want to start out with making a column, I would probably start out with the column with pattern because I know that's what I want. If I didn't, I could start out with column, start making my column, and then convert it to a column with pattern. I'll just do that just so that you know how to do it. So I hit regular column, and I'll just start down here, and the choices now for columns are A, B, and C. B is what most experienced digitizers like because that's where you go right, left, right, left, right, left as you're making your column. A is where you just do one side at a time. So you'd click and you drag them apart. And since this one's highlighted, then that's the side that I'll be making. So I'll be creating that side. And some people like that, especially if you're a beginner. Now I have snap to object edge checked up here. That's why it's trying to snap to the yellow. I'll just uncheck it for a minute. And I'll just go down here and then up here. And I could click now on the other edge and start creating, you know, this other edge, or Control Z, Control Z. What you could do is with this last node selected from this side, you could come over here. If you hover, create second edge, just click that, and there it creates your second edge. So that essentially does the same thing that C would have done if we would have started with mode C from the beginning. Let me just Control Z. Oops, Control Z. The other thing you can try, although it's not going to give you a snake, but it might help you with other designs, is this. Sometimes if I'm, say, clicking here on this last one I did, this tool will be showing, and sometimes you could see if it's going to work to your benefit. So I'll just hit this one. It created that over there. Let me Control Z. Let me hit this one. So it created that. And let me hit this one. So it created that. I mean, these are all great shapes. But, and if I click this, this is the beginning node of this side. These get grayed out. So you may say to yourself, well, maybe I should have started with C to begin with. That would have just helped because C makes, you know, everything the same width all the way through. And I'll show you what I mean. So let me X out of this, and I'll hit the column again, and C is selected. So with C, you click once and you separate them and you put them the width that you kind of want. And then you start creating. And I have curves selected here, so I'll just click here, and then when I move this, it moves both sides, and when I move these, it moves both sides. And now I'll come all the way over here because I want my curved node up here, and I'll click here and create that, and try to get that so this square node isn't pointed as much. Maybe if I zoom in a little. And then down here, I might be able to come all the way over here. Whoops, I have to click at the end node. And I'll click all the way over there. And let's just see what I created. Grab this. So they're all kind of staying the same. And I could probably come all the way up here with this. And there you go. And I know that if I'm going to make a head on it, I kind of want this to be level, but it doesn't look like it's going to. So I'll have to change my mode to do that, which is fine because I'm going to go ahead and change my mode anyways in a minute. So that looks pretty good. So now I have my general shape with C. So now from C is when I can go to either say A or B. Sometimes it's easier to go to A because then you're working on one side at a time. And I can actually move just one node. See, now I'm stretching that. So now it, it looks like some sort of a snake species where it's like wider, and I can kind of, move things around. And even here, I can maybe make this kind of, wider, but I don't think that's accurate. So it might be something like that. And then the other thing I can do is I can, since I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 directional nodes, I can work with my directions. So what I can do is I could generate this and see if I like how the stitch directions are going first. This still is not that smooth here. Okay, I'll just leave it like that. And for here, I do kind of want these to be horizontal. So I'm going to pull down a guide, a horizontal guide. And since I'm on A, I can snap either one of these to that. But I want to click snap to guide right here. So now I can just grab this and grab that. And maybe I'll make them like that. And so, like I said, I'll just hit enter now and see how I like that. And I don't really need the line anymore. And I could change the color of this. Okay. And I'll go into params. And if I hit apply now, you'll see it's a regular column. And because this is so wide, it wasn't able to do, to fill it in. It's just too wide. But that's okay because we're going to change this from a regular column to an auto column with fill. So I'm just going to click OK. I mean, the direction looks okay, but you'll know better when you add your fill pattern. So we're going to do convert column to column with pattern. So now we'll go back into params. And now here's our pattern that we can select. And I'll just put this to 0.2, just because sometimes it's better to do so, especially when you're having overlapping items, which we will when we do the face. But anyways, if I click apply now, you'll see, that's what you have. And, I guess it's okay for a snake, but like I said, I like cusp lines too, just about halfway down. There it is there. It's a little more than halfway. And I'll click apply. And as you look at it, you may say, I kind of want these to go straight more, and I don't really like the directions, but it's a start. So I have auto select underlay on. You can uncheck auto corners just to see. There's no corners here, so it's not going to make a difference. You can select auto shortening. Sometimes that makes things look bad, so you want to do that at the end to see, if it helps you at all. And I'm not going to do maximum random broadening because I want this snake to be smooth on the edges. And this doesn't really change much, So, and I'm not doing a gradient. So we'll just say okay, and I'll hit edit. And I'm going to add a directional node here, but to do so, these have to be square. So with it selected, I'll click insert, and then here, insert. Now there's square nodes, right click, end of segment. So now there's a direction. Now this one might be okay, but I might want to add one here. We'll just see how this handles itself without putting another directional node in. So let me just hit check and generate. I mean, it's okay. That's not bad. I'd want this to be more vertical, and I want these to be a little bit better. So I will go in and edit them. But since I know I'm going to do more editing with those directional nodes and moving nodes on the edges, I'm going to make a copy of this. Control C, Control V. I'll turn that yellow. So I have something to snap to when I edit. So I'll go back into edit. You could either do object, erase stitches to get rid of these stitches, or I could have just hit edit and then hit enter, and it would have erased the stitches, because I just want to be able to see what I'm doing with the blue. So I'll hit the blue and I'll hit edit, and I'll snap to object edges here. That's what this one is. I don't need this right now, so I'm just going to snap to object edges as I move things. So I'm going to make this straighter. I could bring in a guide and snap to guide, so it's guide and object edges there. And so that's okay. Here I may want to insert, right click, end of segment. I might want to slide this. So now it's having a hard time sliding and staying on the object edge. So I'm going to uncheck this. And now it snaps and slides better. And I'll slide this one. Zoom in a little with my plus sign. So, and this here, if you hold down your, whoops, wrong button, sorry, edit. If you hold down your right mouse button on your keyboard, but don't touch the screen, you can scroll around with that hand and then let go of the right mouse button to make this. It just was too pointy right there. And I was saying that down here, I wanted this to be kind of like straighter here. So I'm going to click insert, and I'll just end of segment there, but I'm actually going to move it. And it is still sliding on object edge. Slide this one. Slide this. And we'll see what that does. Hide the yellow. That's not bad. You're not going to have this coloring here when you really stitch it out, but you may want to add an end of segment here. So let's go in and edit it. Let's bring this one back, delete it, click on this one, Control C, Control V again, turn it yellow so we have a fresh one to snap to, hide the yellow. And we'll edit the blue. Yeah, I'm going to add an end. Whoops, Control Z. You can right click, insert, but sometimes it's quicker for me to just go up here and insert, and then right click end of segment. And then I think I'm going to add one up here. I mean, I have this here. Let me grab my guide. This is actually, you know, the end, so it is kind of like a directional line. So I do have that there, but I'm going to just add another one here, maybe right here. Insert, inserts. I use two different methods. Right click, end of segment. It's still snapping. So when you move one, you usually have to move the round ones before and after. And I'm just going to let Embird create this gradual change in direction from here to here. Sometimes if you put in too many directionals, you make it look bad, whereas Embird can make it look better by using less. But okay, so let's check that and generate. And that's pretty good. Now this one here is still not as up and down as I want it. So let me just edit this again. So maybe I do want to take this one and slide it. You know, so it's not as close to this one as far as angle. So let's see what that did. I'll just hit enter and hit generate. That's a little better. I'm going to kind of go with that. I mean, I'm happy with it. I may want to bring this a little over. I could be here all day with OCD here and, you know, adjusting things. That's pretty good. Since I did it, I got it better there, I might do the same up here, and then I promise I'll be done. So instead of this vertical, I'll slide it over a little bit. Slide that, hit enter, generate. That's better. So then I would just save this. Oh, I'm saving it as the other one. I'm saving it over that one. I kind of made a mistake, but that's okay. So now I'll bring back the other one, and you'll see that head that I made. And I made it in such a way that, let me show you, it's grouped. So let me hide the blue. And we don't need this yellow anymore. I'll bring it back so I can delete it. And then this was, okay, so that's the blue that I'm keeping. This yellow was the original yellow of the green. I'm just going to, I'll just leave it in there. So, but I'll show you on the green one how I did the head. So we'll ungroup everything. It was all in the parts window down here. Let me regroup it. So it was all down here in the parts window. Slide this up. You know, these are all the parts. And you could see the first three parts are the body of the snake, and those were the column with pattern, and then these were the head. I didn't use column with pattern. I used regular column, but I used strips, and I'll show you. I'll ungroup it because it's easier to work with it then, rather than in the parts window. So here's the here's the snake body, and I wish I could fit it all in. There's not as many zoom levels in Studio Regular. I could make the snake a little smaller just to fit it all in. Let me just do that. So I'll bring everything back, Control A, and let's see, I've got it at, let me just go a little smaller and see if that fits it all in. I don't want to go too small. Okay. So I'll hide these again. And here's the snake body, and I'll go into normal view or vector view so you can see the stitches. And I'll just make the body for right now. I'll make it, say, orange. Or maybe a lighter orange. So that you could see the difference between the body and then what I created up here. And I know you can't see the dotted directional line at the end of this orange column, but that's what this edge is. It's a dotted directional line. In other words, say if I made a column next to it, okay, that's the line that this is here. It's a dotted line, and it's basically, let's see, I have A on, so I'll click here and click. So, you know, this is a directional line at the bottom, and this is a directional line at the top. There's no way that I can click here and add a node here on a directional line to get a V to come down, to get this V to come down here. So with columns, that's one of the limitations. If you have something irregular, well, you just have to cut off the object straight across at some point and then add your other little shapes to it to create your V. So, you know, you just create that, and then you create another triangle up here. Of course, you got to get everything snapped and so on, but we'll do that in a minute. So if that's your direction, then I would say for this side, I would come up here, okay, because this is this second node here, the ending node. So I would come up here, and then I would, to get this to still be straight across, I'd click here and then have these really close together up here, you know, to create my triangle. So I have a direction there and a directional node there. So that was what would create, you know, my satin stitches going in the right direction. These dotted lines represent your satin stitches, basically. So that's why, you know, I had to break this up. If I didn't want to break it up, then yeah, I would have had to have had this orange object extended, you know, up higher, and then I would have all these stitches in here overlapping. And I think I show you that in a few minutes. So I just interjected this into the video. So we'll get back to the video. So whenever you have a shape such as this, because this is the shape that I really want for my column, if I hide the head here, let me group the head and hide it. See, this is the shape that I really want for my column. This here is okay, I just left it. But I didn't want to have all of these stitches coming in through this area of the head, because then that would have been too many stitches, too much density. I'm still on the wall with that choice, but you know, when I went into my density map, yes, we have a large orange spot down there, but for 3D you can see why, because of the way it's coming in down there. And yes, I could have made my strips a little longer and this and that. So that's another choice. But you'll see my triangles here. They're these two. They're their own columns that are separate from the body. I go back into normal view. So you'll see one is there and one is there. And so the way I did it, I mean, it took me a while to figure out exactly how I wanted to do it. So now I know, you know, how to show you. But, you know, sometimes you have to work with it a little to see what you really want. So what you can see is that the main body, if I hit edit, it's a column. So you could see it's a column with pattern, just like we made it originally. And I have it ending here. So let me zoom out. It's starting here on this end, so that means it's going to end on this end here. This is the ending stitch. However, Embird always shows this side as the ending stitch. That can get confusing. So since, you know, it always highlights this one for some reason. So anyways, I left that so that it would overlap my triangle by this little amount here. It's very small. You could see over here I've got 19 to 20 mils, so it's not even a half a mil. And I probably could have even overlapped it more, but it should be okay. It should be okay, because this column, since it's starting, since it's starting here and it's stitching here, it's pushing upward. So when they say push-pull compensation, technically that's kind of what's happening. The push is, you know, these horizontal stitches get pushed. It's where the stitch penetrations are, those are the ones that get pulled in. So when we call it pull comp, we're kind of leaving out the word push, because push is this push of these horizontal stitches. So I think this little bit of overlap here should be fine. So anyway, so I decided to make my body, you know, come up a little, and then I make my triangle overlap that. So, but the thing is, before I even did any of that, any of this with the body, I created the head, because by creating the head first, then I knew how big I would want my triangle, where I want my triangle, how I want my triangle overlapping the head, because the head is going to stitch last, but I just needed it there for reference. So just so you know, that's what I did. I created the head first. So let's leave these triangles for right now, and let's just pretend like our body is still way up here and I'll show you kind of how I went from there. So with that said, let's just take this one, we'll group it. Ungroup 1 is taken, so let me group 2. So let's hide that one. Let's bring back the blue one. And like I said, let me make sure. Okay. I just want to make sure that the blue one came up high. It really didn't. Let me just make the blue one come up as high as it did when I first started this. So let me edit the blue just for a moment. I kind of brought it, let me just kind of make it how it, I kind of brought it way up here. You know, that's kind of how I made it originally. So, snap. I have snap to object edge on, but if I hit snap to node, I could snap to that node there. So I'm kind of cheating. I'm just trying to kind of recreate. Actually, I'm just going to leave it there for that one. Let me make sure it still looks good. Okay. So that's kind of where we're at with the blue. And let me hide the orange now. And that's kind of the head that I want to create. So, and if I go into vector view, you can see, you know, I'm going to create a head that kind of juts in at a point down here. So I'll just kind of hide that one and pretend like I don't even know what shape I want to make or anything, but I just wanted you to know where I was going with this. So to make the head, I would probably create something for me to snap to, something easy. So I would go in and create a fill object or an outline object even. Might be easier just to create an outline object. So I'll click the outline tool over here. And I think what I'll do is I will click once and I have snap to node on, and I'm going to, whoops, Control Z. I'm going to snap there. I'm just going to snap it there, but I want it to be straight, not curved. So I'll hit straight. And since I know that this is, you know, straight and, you know, it's horizontal, it's, looks like it might be off a little. Let me go ahead and, my blue one was off a little, sorry. I'm going to have to backtrack. Hold on. So my blue one, because I brought it up, that's right, I brought it up. And I didn't snap to grid or anything, or guide or anything. Let's just do this. Right now, we'll just erase the guides, and I'm going to make sure that the blue is perfectly horizontal up here. So I'm going to just hit edit, and since it's by the grid, I'll just snap to grid. I'll just uncheck that. And I'll just snap it there and there. I'm not going to snap it on this in an intersection of a grid because that would just make things too easy, right? I want to just make it a little difficult so you could see how we would address it. Let me right click and bring this up. Okay, so this one is snapped to the grid. Okay. So now the blue is snapped to the grid. I'm just going to hit save. And so now, like I said, I'm just going to create a guide with the outline tool. So I'll click And instead of the grid now, just snap to node. And I'll snap there. Now snap there. And again, I want this to be straight. I want to find the center. And I'm just going to, with this selected, this node selected, I'm going to insert because that'll put a node right directly in the center. And with that in the center, I can come in and, you know, put a guide in. If I zoom in, I can get pretty darn right on top of that. And then I can edit lock guidelines. So I'll zoom out, hold my right mouse, and bring back up here. So now I'll zoom out with my minus button a little bit, just so I can gain some perspective. I'm going to snap to guide, and I'll uncheck this for a minute, and this is how I'm going to bring this down. I could make these curved, but I'm going to just leave them straight, and that looks okay. That looks okay. And so given that, what I could do now is I could take this node here, delete it, take this segment here, reverse it, and now with this selected, I can continue to create my head. I'll snap to guideline, make this curved, and with this selected now, these are showing. If I hit this, there I've created it, and it's beautiful. And so I'll just hit my check mark. So now I have a nice guide to follow. But I think I'd like to make this shape flat on top and on the bottom. That way we won't have a lot of density going on, you know, at a point. So the way I can do that then is, and you'll notice over here I've been playing with it offline. This blue one is the one that I would rather have as my guide. And then this here is kind of what I created, something like that. So this entire shape is wider up here. The center is wide still, narrower down here, and then these are all strips, mind you. They're all column strips. So when I created them, those dotted directional lines were going horizontal like a regular column. And then in the column, I'll just click on one. In the column parameters, instead of sample for regular column, you click on strips and they go perpendicular to what your regular columns were. And then your stitch lengths are set. How many of these lines do you want? How many strips? Choose there, how many layers, and so on. So that's kind of my goal. I'm going to change it. So to do that, to make it look like the blue one, I mean, there's so many ways you can do it, but what I'll do is I'll just hide the blue one. I'll just drag down a guide and kind of put it at the point and at this point down here. And then I'll click on the original here and hit edit, and I'll snap to guide, and right here, snap to guide. And I guess what I'll do is I'll start down here since it's already got the beginning and end node down here because it's an outline. They begin and end in the same spot. So I'll just take this one and snap it to the guide. I'm just kind of moving it over where I think it should be. And then actually, I'm going to do this using the mirror tool. So I don't want to move that one. I forgot. Control C. Let me move it out of the way. I'll move this one. I could have just reversed nodes up here as well, but I'll move that one, and then these I'll delete. And then this one I'll move, say, I don't know how wide I was going to make it. I believe it was about 5 millimeters long. So 36 plus 5 is 41. So about right there, I guess. Something like that. This is about 39. So 39 plus 2 is 41. Okay. So we're about kind of where I wanted to be. And then if you want to mirror this, though, you have to have everything end in the center. So I'll go ahead and click a straight line, and then I'll snap to node up here. I'll just uncheck that so it snaps to node easier. I'm going to do the same thing down here, so I'm going to reverse nodes order up here. Click, straight, snap. That doesn't look like it's... Oh, okay, we're not on the guide anymore. So, do I have my guides locked? Unlock that. Let's just move this guide down so I can snap this to the guide. No, it's still not exactly on. Try that. Okay. However, I didn't want this one to be as wide as that one. Okay, it isn't. Okay. So now reverse the node order so it starts down here. And then I'll mirror it. And hit enter. And that's a better shape. I think we can do much better with it. And so I don't really need the blue one anymore. I could keep it, but I don't know. Maybe I want to make this orange one wider. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to snap to these nodes up here. You can see the little node there. Okay. So I'll just get rid of the blue. And so that's our new kind of like our guide. And then what I want to do from here is I kind of want to make the center oval. You see here. Because then it's easier to make these side ones once you have the center established. Even though the center is going to stitch last, I just wanted to create it first so I can get the shape that I want. And yes, I could just go and use this one, but I kind of want to show you how I did it.